been in and out of my mind. Need to talk to somebody through all the things that I can't find. Everything in slow motion, maybe I'm wrong or maybe I'm right. Both share the same fight. Conversations in the dark, finding ways to find light.
All right, what's going on, world? This is Conversations in the Dark. I'm Andre. Got Justin to my right,
Yes,
your
sir.
left. Nia to my left, your right. And we are here continuing our conversations about the healing journeys of black men on a path towards wellness. And today we're actually going to dive deep into Nia's story. Nia is not a black man, but she has experience with black men throughout her entire life. So she's going to drop some bars and just share with us a little bit about her story. Of course, obviously throughout the season, we're going to learn a lot more about each other, about each other's stories. But yeah, today we're excited to put Nia in the hot seat.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw it to her to give a little overview of what she's going to, open up and talk about today. And then we're going to jump into some questions for Nia.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm excited to share my story. I think that many, many women should join me in this place of self-discovery, especially when it comes to loving, supporting, and honoring yourself first, and then extending that opportunity to black men. I'll start with my journey. My journey and my relationship with black men is really multifaceted, but I don't believe that it's very vastly different from other women's journey. I think I've just done the explorational work and the self-explorational work to be self-aware, to be honest about my story, and to be able to articulate it so that I can share it with a broader audience. So I'll just start from just childhood, my relationship with my father particularly, and my environment. So I was raised in a very dualistic household. On the outside, two-parent home, very religious family, very quiet, but on the inside, full of domestic violence. My dad was a street pharmacist. My mother was his support. And we really hid a lot behind religion to justify why we had to be so secretive. And so I grew up really being conditioned to, I would say, be a manifester, but in a very toxic way. So my parents' relationship was not equally yoked or balanced. My mom ended up getting pregnant at 18 with my sister, and every single pregnancy she had from my dad was in resentment. And I think that what ended up happening was that she was so afraid of what other people were going to think about her. And so many people had hopes and dreams. She had gotten to UC Berkeley. She had a bright future ahead of herself, and she ended up getting pregnant, and she didn't want to be rebuked, I would say, by the religion that we were practicing at the time, which was Jehovah's Witness, and they didn't believe in sex outside of marriage. So she ended up marrying my father, not for love, but because she felt the obligation to. And so, when two people come together out of obligation and not out of love, the children are the end result of that. And so I grew up seeing a lot of dysfunction between what love looked like. A lot of fear-based parenting, a lot of parenting out of regret, a lot of parenting and scarcity. And so I was always very inquisitive. So I would ask questions and never get answers, and sometimes get punished because I would ask a question. So I kind of just existed in my own world, and I did a lot of romanticizing about what it actually looked like versus what it was. And so the result of that was I had unconsciously told myself that marriage was a bad thing, that black men weren't safe, that it was okay for a black woman to be both masculine and feminine energy, and really like a black man was just a burden.
You dropped a lot of knowledge there, and if people haven't checked out Nia's definitions episode, there's you need to go back and check the dictionary.
Right.
There's a dictionary there. But one thing that I definitely want to jump into that you said that kind of sparked a question for me was just, did you feel like you said your mom, that you felt like this there was a resentment? She had pregnancy with your pops out of resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel that resentment growing up, and then how did that, if you did, how did that impact you and your views of black men at an early age?
Yeah, so that's the definition of wound trauma. So like when women are pregnant and they feel an emotion, a strong emotion when they're pregnant with that child, that emotion gets formulated in that child's psyche. And so when I was growing up, I was number 5 of 7. So I got parented in tiredness. It was kind of like things didn't get explained to me. It was kind of like if I didn't pick it up from my brothers and sisters, or if a community person didn't explain it to me, it
Like,
was
go
just
Google it.
fair. Google didn't exist, so that's why I feel like I got really, I really learned how to become intuitively sound very early. Like I had to move a lot off spirit, and so what that leaves you with emotionally is always seeking answers outside of yourself, because you never get that affirmation or that validation that you're doing things right. And it always leaves you questioning, like, is connection really true? So that was it for me. Like I felt like people are very, very, and I mean it's in the nicest way possible, stupid. Stupid. Like, and I try not to be
What
like
you mean
that.
people are what do you mean? In the nicest way possible, people are stupid. What you mean by that?
I just, because when you grow up with that as a sixth sense of like of like being parented in resentment, being parented in frustration, being parented in lack of patience, being parented in bullshit, you can tell when people are doing the same things to you as an adult. And so it makes me look at people in a different way when they're doing those behaviors and they don't think that I know, because I know it on a deeper level. So it's almost disrespectful.
Insult to your intelligence.
When they try to do that to me. And so I have to have patience and to not react from a trauma narrative, when I do get triggered when people do that to me. Right. But I also have to like not label people as stupid because they don't recognize what they're doing. Right. It's just very vivid to me.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part about that, because it's like part of you wants to be understanding because you realize it's not with ill intent, but at the same time, it's you're human, so you're gonna you have emotions as well. And it's like only if you could be aware of is that kind of what pushed you into what you do for a living?
You know what? What pushed me into doing what I would?
Because ultimately, sorry to interrupt you, but ultimately what you're doing is helping people be aware of these things. That
of when they're being ridiculous or like coming from not a place of a presentness.
Right.
What got me into being a therapist was actually, that's another trauma narrative that I'm actually like, I feel like now that I'm getting more into outside of my trauma narrative, therapy isn't an avenue that I feel like I need to take anymore because I've healed in that area. But I had a sister, I have a sister, and she struggled with bipolar when she was younger. And I saw the way that the system discriminated against my mom because she wasn't educated. She had 7 kids. She looked hella young. And she didn't have the articulation to keep up with the doctor. So they gave her 2 choices. They said, you either send her to the hospital or CPS comes and takes her. And so I saw my mom for the first time, very strong, dominant woman, break. She had to give her kid over. And I just remember like looking at the therapist and looking at the doctor and being like, I want to make sure I'm not who they are. So if another Black family has to go through that, they never have this experience. And I said that at 7.
Where was your pops?
He was in jail.
Oh, he was in jail during this time. Okay. So he wasn't around to help your mom in this decision-making process.
Well, even if he was he equipped with the tools?
Right. So my dad dropped out of school in 8th grade. So he always looked to my mom as the smart one. So she didn't have a college degree. This was college talk that they were speaking to her. So I knew even then at an intuitive level that they were demeaning her when they spoke to her.
It's almost like they have this this stereotype or statistical idea of somebody, and then certain trigger words or actions or things they see in your house or wherever you're meeting at, they pick up on those few signs and they just automatically place you in this category.
Yeah, but not only did they place her in that category, they made her bow down to it. That's the part where I was like, the brokenness came in at, because my mom is not a person who just takes what somebody say lightly and just go along with the flow of it. She gonna fight you tooth and nails. But when you're fighting a system, that's a different beast, you know. And when you don't have the financial resources to obtain a lawyer, and even the advocates that was working with her were telling her to do the same thing. So it's just more so like, you know, being traumatized by the system. Yeah. You know, at a very early age, I saw the remnants of that. And so I saw her sense of powerlessness, and I told myself that I'd rather be on the side of the enemy than on the side of the weak.
And that's what got you into what you do now. Yeah,
but I mean, I think one thing about conditioning is that when you grow up in those powerless, hopeless situations from a young age, people, by the time they get to where you can actually like manifest, because I said this at 7. I went to college later.
Was in your bag at 7 years old.
But I kept that. I kept that emotion. And I feel like, even though, like, looking back on it, even though it was a hard emotion to like navigate mentally as a 7-year-old, I just remember the fact of how hopelessness and powerlessness felt. And I just kept that with me, because I feel like when you experience that at an early age, nobody can put you in a situation that you're not going to be able to get yourself out of. And so by me just keeping that life lesson, I would call it, in my spirit, in my soul, now that I'm at the full manifestation of like the outside looking in, and I'm on the side of that, I speak against all that shit. And for me, I didn't do it for the title. I did it for revenge.
So
that was deep.
Yeah, it was. Bars. That was a clap.
Yeah, you're right.
We got to put that at one time. There it is. So kind of switching gears, but staying along the same, you know, Trey, you went off to college. You ended up studying and becoming a licensed therapist. I want to dive a little bit deeper into like how your relationship with your father, when he was there, and then maybe even when he wasn't, and how that shaped your relationships with black men from there on, right? Like, were black men who you sought to date? Did you seek out men? Did you feel like the men you sought out were like your father in terms of their personality, their persona? Were you looking for brothers who were different? How did that play into that mix?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've always like revered my father because he was always very charismatic and like very very kind, right? My mom was like very dominant and like.
Why do you say kind like that though? Is it like kind in a manipulative way, or?
No, he's kind in a way like he'll take his shirt off for you, but if you don't return a favor, he'll kill you. Right? So it was more so like that. And I think that, and this is why I'm like really passionate about women holding themselves accountable, because like I saw my mom's toxic behavior push my dad out of our lives. Like, cause he grew up with his father. So it's not like he was like, oh, I'm gonna get this woman pregnant and not be with her. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though they got married at a young age and he was in the drug game, like, yeah, you do get a lot of women who are going to want you, who are going to desire you. So he did fall into those temptations. But at the end of the day, like, when it comes down to it, like, he always kept coming back home, you know? And I could just think back. And this is not even saying, like, he was perfect, because there's not. I could just think back to the times where they probably could have been in the right direction. Had they both been like healthy enough to do it. They were never healthy at a sound time, but when they were healthy together, we were the most prosperous. We were the most stable. It was almost like when he would go to jail and have to come back out, we would have to relearn him again. It was just a lot of like disassociation, you know, because you don't know, like a lot of secrets. Even to this day, like when my parents argue, shit comes up. It's like, wait, what? That happened? because it's so many untold stories. But I think that, like I said, growing up, I always saw my dad like out there just hustling, just making money, you know, just doing what he needed to do to fulfill his own needs, but at the same time fulfill his family's needs. And I honestly fell in love with the drug dealer story, which was like, you go out there, you hustle, you get you a girl who's legit. She makes sure everything at home is okay. She also runs the back end of the business. She has a business that's legit, so you can filter money through that. And everybody's great, right? So one thing my dad did do, and I'm so blessed that he did, is that he would say to me, he like, Nia, don't date nobody like me. I don't have a 401k. I don't have a retirement plan. He was like, don't date nobody like me. Don't do that. And I'm so happy he did that, because I think he knew that I was just like, God, this
You were
guy's
enamored
great.
by that. Yeah.
Like, this guy is great. So like, but what it ended up manifesting into is that I just started to really like men who were of power. It wasn't even like, they just had to have their own sense of self.
Did the charisma play a part in that too? Like, were you looking for men who were as charismatic as your father? Because the reason why I asked that too is because I think oftentimes as young black boys, and I don't know if Justin, if you feel this way too, but like, we are put in a place where the images that we're shown of other black men who we should aspire to be are very charismatic men, right? And there's a dark side of charisma as well.
Right.
So I would love to know if that's kind of where you were going.
I think that I wasn't looking for charismatic men. I think that the way it was manifested was I became charismatic, and I would attract charismatic people because I revered my father. So I took on more of his tendencies and I took on my mother's tendencies. So I think that just in the law of attraction, you're going to attract what you reflect. But one of the things that about charismatic men that I've realized is that like there's an ego behind that. And so like I learned like, just from different situations that kind of wasn't my speed, like to be with someone who's like super charismatic, because like then the guards are up because they're playing the game, I'm playing the games, and so it just became redundant.
Y'all ain't playing number games,
right?
over here.
It became redundant, so it wasn't. But I would say one of the things, my dad was a very like well put together person, and so I like men that are really well put together who take care of themselves, because like even now, like he still goes to the gym and he only has one leg, but like you're not going to see him fall off. Like that's just how he is.
Wait, your dad?
Down
Yeah,
to
I'm
his
about to learn.
fingernails.
I'm learning so much. Your dad only has one leg.
Yeah, he got shot. Yeah, when we were young.
In the leg that he doesn't have anymore.
So he got shot when I was younger. He was this is another story.
You don't have to go in detail,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, he got shot. So he got into it with this person, and they ended up shooting him, and so he lost his leg. He got to get amputated, and so like yeah, he only has.
How old were you when that happened?
I think I was probably 10, but like it was crazy because like my mom had to come and take us from school because she didn't know if someone's gonna find out where we were and come and retaliate.
so wait, hold on. So Pops is living in your house with one leg also while all this is going on?
What is going on?
Like with the stuff that you're explaining as far as like you growing up. Like at what point did
yeah, so on and off. So like I said, my dad was a career criminal, so like some days he's home and some days he's not.
but with one leg, like because you have to imagine what that does to his psyche too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for
Like
sure.
that plays a big part in it.
And he doesn't talk about it either.
Especially if
Really?
he's physically active, right? Like he goes to the gym and he likes his fitness.
And can you say how old he was around at this time?
Maybe in his 30s.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah, maybe his 30s.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
tough.
he's a silent person. Like he'll never. He suffers in silence. Like you would never see. I've seen my dad cry because he's a self-expressed person, but I've never seen him be weak. Like I've never seen him cry in weakness. I've seen him cry because
frustration.
Loss.
he's frustrated. He's frustrated. He's a sense of hopelessness or like.
Like grieving. You ever seen him grieve?
No, I never seen him grieve.
I seen my dad grieve. That was tough. Have you ever seen your pops grieve?
Just recently for the first time.
Yeah, no. Always in frustration or like a sense of hopelessness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Both my parents are very, very safeguarded, emotionally distant people. And so you could just imagine the type of children.
Right. So in your journey, thinking about that, when did you always think in your head like, I'm not gonna be that. I'm gonna be more emotionally available for my kids, for people who are in my lives, or were you like, I'm gonna be that too? I'm gonna guard myself just as much as they guard themselves.
No, I just knew I was going to go and be a therapist. I didn't think of like the other stuff, the intangibles.
You're just like, this is my goal right here. I'm gonna these people who just screwed my mom over.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that time when I just was like so frustrated with life. I was just like, I'm about to just tap out. I think I was like 8, and I was just so disappointed.
8, you're saying this like you're so young when you're having these kind of thoughts. That's crazy.
I know, I am. I
don't know if I can remember being that young thinking like that. I don't remember much from that young, which might actually play a part in that. But I don't remember much from that young as far as that detailed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's crazy to me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've done my healing work to really reflect back at.
So that's how you can. That's a good point. That's a good point.
To reflect back and just kind of see, like, okay, well, when did I actually like tap out, like kind of just float through life? I think that, and that's why I feel like I was able to keep that energy at 7, because at 8 I tapped out, and so I was just kind of just surviving at that point.
Which is crazy because you say how safeguarded your parents were, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just sitting over thinking, just coming from the inner city because they're from Richmond. Mm-hmm. That's a survival mechanism, and maybe you took a part of that, but you had other ways of, like, you took a little bit from what you saw your parents do, and I'm sure other stuff around you and the timetables of the differences from when we grew up and when they were growing up, and you also molded your own coping mechanism.
I mean, traumatizing things like, you know, that we normalize in hood living is that one of the things that my mother specifically instilled in me is that you don't ever lose a fight. If you lost a fight, you don't come home.
Because you're gonna lose a second when we get home,
right? And I remember, like, vividly, like, trying to avoid conflict because I didn't want to get in trouble for losing a fight. And I also remember vividly, like, this one time, I had got jumped on the way home because, you know, when you got messy family members, you don't know who got problems with you. Right. I don't even think I had a specific problem with them. I think I was associated to one family. I don't even remember who it was. And they jumped me, and my mom got in the car and she drove me back down there to fight them again. After I just got jumped.
Yeah. I've seen that a lot in my time in education. There's a lot of that.
That's actually extremely toxic, especially when you're an empathic person. Like, I couldn't be empathic in that.
You know what's crazy?
area.
The people. So obviously, I have a 7-year-old son, and people. I'm never gonna be like that with my son. Like, I teach my son to avoid conflict at all costs, because me being a young man, there's so many times where I had so many close calls. With just having that mindset, of not being able to back down. Not like, even as a grown man, it's like, and then with kids, it's like, I don't want to teach my son that you have to fight your way through life.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, because what it made me do as a woman is it made me extremely aggressive. Like, you know,
but not even just that though. It puts you in bad situations. Road rage. I hate people that have road rage, because you never know what that person in the other car is going through, right? And especially the way of the world right now, people are out here shooting people for the smallest things right now. So is it really worth you saying something to the car over if they cut you off just because, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, bro, you don't have to, like, that's unnecessary conflict.
Right. Well, to Nia's point too, like, I think that is a symptom of over aggressive mindset, right? That's a symptom of, you know, push come to fight, flight, freeze.
Right.
I'm a fight.
Right. I'm
you know,
a fight.
and if I'm always in fight mode, every little thing is a trigger for me then to go out there and fight, right?
Exactly.
Somebody cut me off, and you see it's a little old lady, and you just out here trying to fight a little old lady on the street. You know
exactly.
Without even the conscious awareness that this woman she might be blind, right? She might have, I think, to that point, right? Like, I actually want you to talk a little bit more about your experience, because I think this is a good one of, like, how that developed that aggression in you, and then how you saw that manifest until you started the healing of that.
Yeah, I think that I've always been like ever since that conditioning happened. And so it was the conditioning of the system, right? At 7 and seeing that. Then it was to the condition of just living in a hyper violent area where everybody was like enrichment, like you don't show your face. You don't show, because people are reading you.
Poker face.
You know? And so even with that, like I learned at a very early age to be stoic in my expression. Like, which makes it very hard for people to understand you're in pain because you don't have the facial adaptivity to express, when you're hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like I would be in pain, but like I'd be like, yeah, my feelings are hurt. And I'm like, oh, okay.
This is so interesting to me because to me, when I think about this and I think about all the things I've learned over my time and just knowing Black people from my experience in my own life, that's so counterintuitive to who we really are in the deep inside, right? Like we are so expressive.
Yes.
We are so emotive. Like we are so empathic. We are such people that like this side of us that's been cultivated and created over, years and years and years post enslavement. It's like, it's still not us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so
but it is
white
like people think it is.
supremacist because those survival skills that my parents were teaching me were for the benefit of me. It wasn't like they were doing these things because they were like terrible parents. They were doing this because like they knew what I had to grow up in and what I had to survive. Like my parents didn't think I was going to go to college to become a damn therapist. They were conditioning me to live in that environment and to thrive in it. And I tell people all the time, like, there's hierarchy in the hood and I wasn't at the bottom of it. So like even like how I am as a person, like people say, oh, she's bougie or whatever. What the fuck? I was born bougie. Like my dad was a drug dealer. Drug dealers are at the top of the totem pole. Like, what are you talking about? They're
street
not over here
pharmacists.
thugging it. They're entrepreneurs of the hood. So, like, I've always grown up with nice things. I've always grown up feeling special. I've always grown up feeling empowered. I've never not felt like I couldn't, there was a mountain I couldn't climb. Those type of things were instilled in me. But when you go out there to the real world, right, outside of the trauma narrative, then you feel less than because those survival skills that you learned to be at the top of where you were at are no longer useful. And so I had to really restructure a lot of my mindset because pledging, the worst.
Nia, I wanted to kind of dive in now that, you've explained the things that you faced and how you've healed from those things. And now you have a Black son. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about what types of things you faced in your own journey of healing that were kind of trauma triggers, even in your rearing of him.
Yeah, I have a daughter. She's 17, and I think my daughter and we grew up together. So we more like our sisters that are cohabitating together, but I still have to have that boundary where it's like, I'm still your mom. So our dynamic is different. With my son, he's 6, so he's 11 years younger than my daughter. He was a really, really nice introduction into our family because I feel like he balanced us out in a way where he mirrored a lot of my shadows that I was running from, and I just hit it through perfectionism. So like paper, credit, location, I was the shit, right? But when I had my son, I really realized how unstable I was because I have had my daughter really young and I had an excuse to make a mistake, right? When I had my son, I was out of college, ending my master's, and I had no excuse of why I repeated a cycle. And that cycle went, my daughter would have been pressuring me, and my family too have been pressuring me, like, when you gonna have a kid? And I folded. And so I had a friend that me and him we had kind of messed around. We had been on and off, but I was like, if I was to ever get pregnant by somebody, I would trust him enough to have a child. I really, like, if I'm really being transparent, I really didn't care about him. He just fit the mold, like, of someone I would feel like I could do this.
Yeah.
And financially, I had the means to do it by myself had I chose to do it.
Did you not to cut you off, but like, did you feel ready to have another child, or did you feel like it was more the pressure that other people were putting on you?
No. I mean, I wanted a boy, and I think the fear was I was always taught, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So I was like, okay, I have to have a baby if I'm not having a baby. So anyways, it wasn't something that was intentional, but it also wasn't something that was prevented intentionally, right? So, ended up, long story short, ended up getting pregnant by Tegan's dad. He clearly wasn't ready to have the baby, but I was so selfish, I didn't really give a fuck. And I went ahead and I had him, but I found out that I found out when my son was 2 weeks old that he had cheated on me. And so this is the thing, and this is how I am. Keep it real. I'm not a person that you have to hide stuff from, because I accept people for where they're at and who they are. So it wasn't the fact that he cheated on me that really took a toll on me. It was the fact that he was dishonest, and now there's a child involved in the situation, because the child didn't have to be involved in the situation had he kept it real. So I'm looking at this fucking baby. I just like sacrificed my body for 9 months. Found out his dad's, with a whole bitch, and she's not even black. Sorry. And I want to beat somebody up, because remember, I told you, like, I instantly went into that fight mode, and I'm ready to take this aggression, this anger out on him. And I remember the night that I found out, he came home, and I had my son in one hand, and I'm at the door. I'm like, so do you want to tell me what the fuck happened? And he was like, wait, what are you talking about? I was just like, I'm just being transparent right now. I was like, did you fuck Shelby? And he was like, what? And so then, like, I told y'all, he's insulting my intelligence. Because I know when people are lying, when they're being disingenuous. So I'm triggered even more. I just started taking off on him. I had my son, and I blacked out. I had my son in one arm, and I was literally beating him and I'm like full floor. So I'm like swinging like this, like because like I'm a small person, but I'm trying to kill him. And I just started like hitting him. And now I can hear like, yeah, the baby. And I was just like, I came back into, I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. And I started grabbing all my stuff. And like, I grabbed my daughter, I grabbed my son. I was like, fuck you.
You're out.
And I was done. I was like fucking done. And then I'm at my Stan's house, and I'm like, and this stupid fucking baby is here. I don't want to have this baby. What is this baby doing here? Like, my son's crying. He wants to eat. I'm breastfeeding him. I don't want to breastfeed him because I don't want to have anything to do with him. And I really had to find my way back to love my son.
So yeah, I think tell people a little bit more, because I think some people could be listening and be like, she didn't want to see you eat her baby. Like, what is her baby? Tell people in your mind what was going through your mind as it related to the connection between your child's father and him.
Yeah, I feel like of all the choices of choosing someone and doing it at this time, first of all, why did I trust him? And second of all, like, I don't want to have his baby anymore. Like, I don't want the only thing that was connecting me to him to where I couldn't leave the relationship was his child.
And like, you felt like your son was a representation of him.
Of that connection. It was like the only thing that I had connected to him, because it was if he wasn't there, then I could leave. I can just do my thing. I can just go off. But now I have to deal with, and I had to face my shit. And I blame my son for that. And so I went through a lot of postpartum with that. Like, I really had to, like, some days I would have to just hold Tegan and be like, I love my son. These stars are not real. I love my son. Nope, I love him. Look, Nia, he is your child. You have this baby. Because the resentment was so deep. But that, again, that goes back to the conditioning that I had, you know, growing up. And that anger and that rage. And when you can't go into those vices, like you can't escape, you can't fight your way out of it. You got to really sit with your shit. You got to really process your emotions. And then also too, like, God gave me the biggest testament, and he gave me my son. So it was just like all those things that I had grew up seeing my mom defame my dad, be toxic and abusive, run away from her issues. It was like, it was kind of like a path. Like, do you choose to go down the same path and take your son down with you, you know, and be another representation of that generational narrative? Or do you face yourself in that? Like, do you face that shadow? And so Tegan represented a lot of that unhealed pain generationally for me.
Yeah. And he's a great young man.
He's a great guy.
He's
First of all, I
awesome.
love my son.
He's so cool.
the best thing that
He
ever
loves
happened
animals.
to me. He's really articulate
Stays on
and
the iPad.
intelligent. Yes. He loves his mom. He was just telling me the other day, he was like, Mom, you're my best friend. And I was just like, oh, thank you, baby. Yeah, he's a really sweet boy. But because I had to hold myself accountable. First of all, I had to forgive his dad. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to do, because I'm the type of person, if you double cross me, you're done. Like, you're dead. But I also saw growing up how my mother let her pain get in the way of my relationship with my father. And I never wanted to have my kids on the receiving end of my unresolved issues that I had with his dad. So I went to therapy for it. And I really had to practice the art of forgiveness, because, you know, I had to love my son unconditionally.
How did you do that? I think like that I think there's a lot of people in this world who, I'm just flabbergasted. Like, there's a lot of people in this world who would never, I mean, they would say this, eventually they might, but like they would say they never forgive somebody for that.
Yeah.
Like, for those people who are listening who are like, man, I can feel in my soul that I need to forgive to move past, but I can't even get over that hurdle.
One thing that I can honestly say that I've always tried to instill in my children is unconditional love. Like, that has been like, if I leave my children with any type of legacy and you know, outside of monetary gain, it will be that. Like, my children will understand fully what it means to feel unconditionally loved by me. Like, and I feel like my son, he in order for me to love him, I had to forgive his dad. Bars.
Can we
Round of applause.
Yeah, round of applause on that one.
On cue.
Absolutely, Nia.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can I ask a question? So, obviously, you said that 2 weeks after your son was born, you found out that. How was you guys' relationship, or, you know, situation before, like, during the pregnancy?
Again, so it goes back to, like, he just fit a character in my story. I didn't care about him, right? So it was very surface, Instagram-ish, right? So now that doing the work and really getting to know Black men and really understand that you guys are people, you have personalities, you have feelings, you have desires. On those levels, I was not we weren't connected. We were more connected around like roles, responsibilities, and obligations, right?
And I only asked that not to give him like a out. I just kind of want to play devil's advocate, just only because I don't think we talk about that enough as far as when it comes to the father making a decision, whether it's to step out or whether it's to be in the child's life or whether it's to anything, leave the mom. We don't talk about the what transpires during the pregnancy. That can kind of lead to that.
I mean, he had insecurities around being with me in the first place because, like, he believes I stepped out on him. But again, that was a belief that it's still not factual, right? So even in getting back together, like, there was insecurities around that. But again, going back to that, I was just focused on living my life and having a baby and moving on and us doing those things. I really didn't put emphasis into like his process, what he was going through. And he
was this his first child?
Yeah.
But see, even outside of that, right? Let's say if there was never any stepping out, I don't think we talk about enough how the father isn't prepped or or taught how to be the support system for a pregnant woman.
No.
Especially when you've never experienced that. So I literally turn into your punching bag almost in a way in some situations. I mean, of course, I'm saying the worst case scenario. It's like I have this woman whose body's going through a change. She's dealing with all kind of emotions. There's all type of pressure on me. There's pressure on her. There's all these different elements that go into it that can sometimes lead to, the man walking away, stepping out, moving out, and whatever decision he makes to do going forward. And I don't think we talk about that part enough. Like, I understand it's the woman going through it and the mother. I understand all that. But again, the father still
matters.
Yeah.
And he totally got left out. I'm not negating that at all. But what I do hold him responsible for is just being an honest person. That doesn't matter if you're a father or not. That's a character flaw that I feel like, but that is a coping skill that he struggles with because he tries to hold himself in such a high regard. And one of the things that, like I said, like I'm big on is character, and I feel like if you even would have just been honest with me about
that's scary though.
But that's what I'm saying.
But it's necessary.
Because there's a child involved.
But that's so much easier said than done.
It is, but
I'm sorry, this is kind of going from
his
healing journey more into a topic.
He ended up losing everything he was trying to protect anyway because he was being flawed in his character. Right. Like, I can respect him, man. Look, my dad's a drug dealer. My expectations, it's not like he had a child on my mother. It's not like I'm not prone to this shit. But honesty is everything, especially in a relationship. And for me, if we got the house, we got the car, now we having a kid, you at some point you have to be honest. Like how do you build a relationship even in flawed if there's no trust?
For sure. Right.
How do you do that? Right. And so for me, I just felt like first of all, we were friends, so I thought we were better than that. I thought that, and it was so many, when I look back at it, it was so many incidents when, like, my friends told me he was messing with this girl, but I was like, oh no, he was never do that. First of all, like, it's me, hello. But yeah, for sure, like,
this is Nia. I appreciate you. This was a fantastic healing journey.
Yeah.
It was great getting to know a little bit more about your healing journey. I appreciate you also for saying that, black men are people. We have feelings, emotions, our own thoughts, because I think a lot of people don't think like that. And a lot of people would have even formed opinions about your child's father. And for you to share that you've forgiven him is a huge example for other people on what they might be able to do. It doesn't excuse people's actions.
Right.
But like you mentioned, the forgiveness isn't just about him and you, it's about your son.
My son.
So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today to Conversation in the Dark. Make sure you subscribe on all the platforms. Yes, check out our visual on YouTube, and we'll see you next episode.
Sounds good.
Bye.